All right. So here is the start of the October meeting for the Players Council. Um, Theoretically, these things are monthly, but it didn't happen last month. I feel like we were getting enough done, and honestly, I was too busy trying to ramp up before I got myself into a new job. So I figured I'd set that aside and actually just get stuff done. But now that we're here, let's go down the list here. So, from the previous meeting, these are the things that were resolved that we were going to do. Katura, me, was going to look into the sealed code to see how much work needs done and how to make new sealed events. This is mostly complete. The sealed system has been overhauled, and there's just a handful of small things that need developed before this is ready to get pushed out. In particular, there is a script that needs to be ran to adjust the naming convention for all of the existing sealed events that are in the database to make sure that nothing breaks when we convert over. But once that's done, that should be ready to go. Number two, Katura will look into price support with boosters of full art cards. So we haven't actually made any of those yet, but as part of the sealed rework, products definitions also got reworked, and so now it is very easy to go in and define a product, particularly if it's not randomized. If we just give them a selection, that part is very, very easy. So if we wanted to, we could put together a masterwork selection or a full art selection, and that would be pretty trivial to throw out there. So I think we should probably take advantage of that sometime soon. And then Nelson was going to get caught up on how to make sealed things, and he has in fact done that. Over the last month or so, he has been hacking away at his sealed proposal that he made a while ago, and he has now converted all of the ideas that he had into sealed formats. Those are now all defined properly in JSON, and they are pretty much just waiting for the sealed overhaul to get deployed. Now, the original plan was to make a deployment and then have the very first new sealed event, be on the 28th, next week. Sorry if I keep muting myself. That's me coughing and whatnot, so you guys don't have to hear it. I don't know if I'm going to get this done this weekend. If I hadn't gotten sick, I definitely could have had it all done. But my output is a bit restricted. So we may have to adjust that timing, especially so that we can give ourselves a little bit of marketing time, I guess, so that we can go post about it on Facebook and whatnot, so people know that it's coming. But yeah, so we'll just have to play that one by ear. I'm going to try and get everything done before the 28th, but I don't know that it will happen now at this point. Okay, so state of the game. The other day I went and put together some charts, just relating to how the game's health is going. I went through and pulled all of the game histories from the database. Unfortunately, with our move, we only have data from January 2018. But as you can see, we've obviously got the big jump from the pandemic, and things have just been slowly cooling off ever since. It's not quite to the point of pre-pandemic just yet, but it is getting there. There are a few spikes in playtime around January. Some of that is just the fact that people have time off, but we also had our release of the first set V1 beta during this last January, so I think that's at least a little bit to blame there. And just to show so this is the breakdown of formats over time. So we've got this greenish is Fellowship, this reddish is Movie, and this orangish is Expanded. And these slightly darker colored ones right next to it are the PC equivalents of those formats. So Movie has actually been fairly popular, and Expanded, although you can't really see it, partially just because Expanded in general is less popular than the others, and so a proportional percentage also looks even tinier. That is a good question. I think it includes everything because this is the general game history table. But I will. I, I mean, I think that honestly might just be people putting their money where their mouth is. I mean, if you've been complaining about GLR and Castamere and some of these others, well, here you go. Here's a format that where they're not quite as bad. Um, so yeah, the current. Let's hop over and take a look at the current info. So as of right now, if you were to total up all of the expanded, or sorry, all of the PC formats over the last month, I think we would get just about 2.5% if I'm doing math right. Maybe just close to 2%. Um, I know that at one point we were close to like 4 or 5%. So things have definitely cooled off a little bit. Part of it is, I think, honestly, the fact that we have not kept up our regular errata, and so uh, there's less things for people to be excited about. They come in, try it out, and because there's not all that many games for it. I mean, there's a few right now because we've got that weekend league going on. But outside of the weekend leagues, a lot of times I come over here and look in, and there'll be 10 or 15 games with no PC formats in sight. Um, so honestly, I kind of think that we need to try and get errata and stuff out, just so we have a trickle of content to say, hey, yeah, this is being actively maintained. But we haven't really been doing that. Anyway, next line item. Good response to the Shire Masterwork. I didn't really see anybody that had anything bad to say about it. Um, there were some tweaks and critique and so forth, but nothing that showed anybody that was mad about it. However, I don't know how much of that is just the sort of people that wouldn't like it just decided not to say anything kind of thing. But at any rate, it is one of the rewards here for the weekend league. So I think that was a little bit hype building. So I'm glad we did that. And I got a little bit more to say about that a little bit later. And then after that, the wiki advanced card search was deployed. Because GEMP itself does not have this sort of thing. I think that it was important to get this set up. Having it happen in GEMP is going to be trickier. So that's something that's not going to be able to happen for a while. But at least now there is some sort of tool where you can go in and you can do all kinds of very specific searches, especially if you have an understanding of regex. Let's see. Okay, so as we talked about with the sealed leagues, he's got a write up here for the a good announcement that might be used. So that's pretty much all just waiting on me to get that deployed. Um, like I said, we might have to delay this a little bit. I'm going to try as hard as I can to get this out there. It's also partially waiting on an overhaul to the collection system, which I guess I'll get into that here in a moment. Um, but they're sort of intertwined at this point. So it's just kind of cruddy that it has to wait. But as far as that goes, so last weekend league in September, there was a bit of a snafu. And when I defined the Gimli masterwork, I accidentally reassigned it the exact same ID that a previous full art card had. So the Isildur full art. I just knew that a mistake like this was going to eventually happen. And unfortunately, because of the stupid way that the collections are set up, it's not possible to go back and remove cards from someone's collection. And there are no tools in place for fixing that sort of thing. So I am elbow deep in a collection system overhaul that will make it so that everything is now exposed in the database. And if there's ever such an issue such as this, I can just go in and I can write a quick SQL script to fix it. So yeah, need to get that out for this sealed thing to go out, because now the code for the two of them is a bit entwined. Next thing that I might start working on, because so unfortunately I am employed, so my output is going to be reduced, and so some of the bigger projects are a little bit more difficult to knock out. But so the next thing I might actually start working on is a card definition overhaul. There's been a lot of complaints recently about Tangwar cards, and so I think I might just do this because it's a small to medium size project, and I think that that would be very useful to be able to actually hover over Tangwar or whatever and have it replaced with the English version, or when you right click on it in the view, it will actually just show up as with the game text over here on the side, in addition to all the other stuff. Um, so yeah, that's I think what I'm going to work on next, just because it's small and approachable. And then for the masterworks, so while we put together the Shire masterwork, we talked about um, what we could do next. Um, I think that it turned out to be a lot more approachable than we were expecting it to be. And so pretty much we can. I was sort of thinking that maybe we could knock out one of these a month, but I don't think that's actually going to happen. But once every couple of months or something would be nice. We've thrown together an example of what could be done for Sauron as our next one. Sauron and Isengard, I think, should be the next two, so that we can actually have some more shadow culture masterworks. Because right now there's only like 2 or 3. Um, so yeah, Foe of Night has been huge on that, as well as Throxor. So kudos to them with help for the Shire. And yeah, so that's something that we can work on as well. Um, Other than that, at the last meeting that we had, there were a bunch of things I talked about that we could be doing. Some things that we probably really should have somebody working on, like the comprehensive guide. And I talked earlier today about how errata really is something that we ought to try and get out. Um, just a trickle, if nothing else. Like just say, okay, here's 3 or 4 cards that we're going to spin out real quick, and there's lots of proposals, lots of things that could be done. It just needs somebody to come up and say, okay, I'm going to own this, and I'm going to decide that here's the thing that we're going to try and do, and let's get feedback on that. And after we've made tweaks, let's implement it and let's kick it out. But so yeah, if nobody steps up to that, that's basically going to wait for me to have time on that. So if that's something that you're interested in, please step up. And that's pretty much everything I had to say. Nelson, I see that you snuck into the chat room. Do you have anything you wanted to say about the sealed stuff? Yeah, so I mentioned how you have your write-up, that you have finished up all of your definitions, that it is pretty much just waiting on me to get some coding stuff done. And I said that I don't know if we're going to be able to make that 28th deadline, just because I'm sick during the weekend, and that's when I was planning on getting most of it done. Um, yeah, cool. So I'll just try and get that done, and then whenever that gets done, then we can decide when we're going to announce the first one. Um, Awesome. In Fellowship, we're definitely seeing more Nazgul, which of course was completely trashed by both the combination of Flaming Brand and just not being nearly as good and consistent as Uryx. And since Uryx were brought down and Nazgul were brought up, it definitely led to more Nazgul shenanigans. I think that Last Alliance is still on top, and I kind of want to address that card specifically at some point, um, or like maybe add an exertion cost or something that where every turn you have to exert an elf or something. But yeah, I'm not as big on movie. I have been trying to follow expanded. Um, I've been watching, spectating on a lot of matches, especially whenever an expanded PC format comes up. And there's still a lot of BS that we haven't really touched on. I posted the other day that image of the Strength 47 Olaria Lamenia, which was entirely down to it was basically an Ever My Heart Rises deck, and so they had chucked 200 cards in their discard pile, and so every time they played Lamenia, he was ridiculous. And so like there's still a lot of cheese, and I feel like there's still a lot of things in expanded specifically that we could knock down pretty easily without it necessarily being um, you know over the top. But and so one of the things that I talked about in the other meeting was that I feel like we ought to be trying to take like an approach of addressing specific mechanics, like the discard my whole deck archetype. We need to have that discussion of, do we want that to still be something that exists? Do we just want to nerf it? Do we want to um, rework it into something different? Do we just want to ban the cards? Do we want to like what's like what is our stance on this concept? Because it's kind of got the 1-2 punch of being both very slow to play against because they have to sit here and discard 200 cards at once, um, even with the changes done in GEMP to make that a little more painless. So there are a few different. I think there's three different cards that are part of this combo. What is the other one? Uh, Darn, I can't find it. I know there's another one though. But so Ever My Heart Rises, doing the one-time drawing of six, and then yeah, discarding one at a time. But then you've also got Realm of Dwardelf, which is a pretty permanent skirmish winner once you have it in place. If you've got a gigantic deck, because you can just make every single dwarf strength +3 and damage +3. Um, like without even taking into account any of the events or whatever else you might have in your hand. Um, Now, I do think that it's very possible to just add like some limits onto these. Although Realm of Dwardelf already has a limit on it, it doesn't really get in the way much. Another thing that we could try to do is we could say make this non-unique, and then alter the Fellowship action to also spot a card stacked on it to take it into hand. So that becomes part of the cost, and so you would be limited to however many copies of this you physically got out. So you could still get 4 copies of Ever My Heart Rises in play, and that would allow you to get 6 times 4, 24 cards, which you could theoretically then discard. If you got really lucky, then that's 24 cards off the top of your deck, um, in addition to whatever you pulled in. But another thing we could do. Mhm. Yeah, correct. Another thing that could be done is that I don't know if that would necessarily change anything. We could make it so that instead of stacking cards here on play, that we make another action that says, okay, exert a dwarf twice or something to stack cards here, and then combine that with the limit of spot a card here and then discard a card at the top of your deck to take it into hand. So you could still keep refreshing it, but it requires you to burn resources on the table, that being dwarven vitality. Hmm. Yeah. Well, and that's actually specifically one of the other ones that came up. I do think that both of those cards need limits on them. And this is one of the ongoing things that I'd like to do is try to reel in the overall power ceiling of expanded. I mean, I understand that there's some people that like the fact that you can just go crazy and have a bajillion, strength on people. But if it's ever gonna be appealing to anybody except for those 15% of players, um, like this is the kind of crap that is going to immediately. yeah, there's definitely different angles that could be taken. To your point about the fact that this was not a problem until removal concepts got removed. I definitely think it's going to be a game of whack-a-mole, an extended game of whack-a-mole. There's 3,000 cards, and I'm okay with that. But if we're ever going to actually get to that point of it being semi-balanced, we just have to keep attacking things, and it does mean that every month a new thing is going to come up and be like, wow, well, this is an ecosystem, and that was a toxic strategy that was countered by all the other toxic strategies we put in the ground. So it's just going to be a new problem all the time, and that's okay. I find that that's fine. The fact that any of those sorts of things are now able to rise up, and now we've got a different meta. I feel like that's kind of the point of doing any of these erratas or anything like that. But it definitely requires a little more consistency in our application than we've been doing. Um, which is exactly what we did with Castamere that one time. Yeah. Oh yes. Yes. Yeah, this guy. And honestly, I have played against this a few times, and while I hesitate to say, well, because I lost to it, it needs nerfed, there's some pretty ridiculous things you can get up to with all of the one. Hmm. Yeah. Expanded, I think, has so many different things going on with it that I don't know that anything has like solidified. Like you can actually do like 50 different strategies, and we don't have enough competitive events where people actually put aside what's fun and just try to beat their way to the top, to really be able to tell, okay, well, what's the current meta strategy? There's just almost anything you throw it together is going to have some ridiculousness attached to it. What you were mentioning there actually made me think. Was it Game Against You that I did with Gilrain's Memorial, in a fellowship match where somebody had a turbo corruption strategy where they were really just trying to lay on the burdens, which was just one of those things that Nazgul were more powerful and therefore they were able to really go nuts with it. And I just kept peeling them off with the Gilrain's Memorial. It was never like as bad as it was with Son of Hamfast, but it was just enough to keep me in the game, even though they kept recurring the same few events, and throwing them back into their deck and hitting me with more burdens all the time. Like I felt like it was much more interesting when you have a situation where there is actually something that you can do about these problems instead of just building your deck. You use a different culture. Like that's not a good answer when mhm, yeah, yeah, And I just like to say that that's really kind of why we're doing any of this, is to add more variety, add more, you know make it so it's not quite as fossilized as it once was. Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know if I had any other topics to go over. As far as follow-up items, like I am going to be, let's see, Katura will try and get the sealed rework plus the collector rework out ASAP. We want to try. Ah, yes. And that's definitely something that we could take a look at. I know that so on Morvale, in the Polish community, has added Race to Mount Doom stuff in their mLotro client, and so they've been having fun with it. Yes, he doesn't have the material. Well, so he had to scour the internet to try and find what specifically some of the league modifiers were for those sites, but and some of them I think they even ended up coming up with some of their own because they had gaps and there were some obvious like marketing you know versions and not actually balanced incarnations, but so I know that it's mixed it up for them, and it would be nifty to look into what it would take to have something similar for ours. But right on. Um, let's see. So silver work. Oh, do a little bit of work for the Sauron masterwork. Um, Even if it's not completed, at least try to take a look at that. Nelson, you mentioned that you were just going to keep plugging away at those whatchamacallit, the V1 sealed yeah, decks. hmm I'll have to go look up the exact amount, but it is
Not that high, but the amount you get when you first create an account is big. Like, make the amount you get when you create an account enough to, I don't know. You don't want it to be enough to enter a league, because then someone would just create an account and then we're playing whack-a-mole with, looking for people with the same IPs. I could just hop on there and check IPs to try to take out people that are making alts, which we've been doing. But
Well, you say
make
that.
the create an account one low and then the weekly amount that you get every week higher, so that they have to wait a week to get that extra gold.
Yeah,
Well,
like I'd like to do something like that.
and that definitely makes sense. On the other hand, if we have somebody that gets excited over the idea of the leagues and has never been a part of the of Gemp before, and they legitimately sign
Right.
in and they're not able to start for a week, that's gonna suck. Um,
Yeah, I wonder if like part of what we could do is promote the league more than a week ahead of time. And then we can say like in one of the promotions we can say, make sure you make your league by Sunday night so that you can get your extra gold on Monday and be able to join the league. Obviously they might not understand what that all means. That might be an issue, but if we could promote it early enough and say if you want to play in the league, now's the time to make sure that you've joined by. That might be an effective way to do it. Because then, when people have one account, yeah, and obviously, I guess that doesn't stop people from making multiple accounts ahead of time, if they're really into creating issues that way. But it will stop the people that are more casual. And, I have one of the leagues where you open 36 boosters. You just basically open up a booster box and build a deck with what you have. And if you aren't planning on having multiple accounts and you open 36 and your pulls are terrible, you might be tempted to then create a new account, but then at least those sort of people are negated from doing it, and it's only like the people that preemptively plan to do this that would be the issue.
it's a tricky
That
problem because anything that we do that discourages brand new players. I mean, like I would rather have two cheaters for every player if for every genuine new player if that's what required. Um,
Yeah, that's fair. That's true.
And the cheaters never really, so we've had them before. There was someone back in like 2018 who was just like rampant, but they generally they may end up like creating that account that gets them the green leaf or the Aragorn's bow or whatever, but they're not the type of people that, like, they may still lose to Schuler, who built a deck out of good decent common cards and he just wrecked them.
Right.
Like, so it's
I
like,
gotta.
and then they might just throw their hands up and say I'm done with it. So yeah, that's
Right.
like Katura, that is a good point. Like, the people that are going to do that may not be like such a hard target that we really have to, punitively attack, that might affect the random casual player. I was going to throw in there though too that I know the way that the SWCCG GEMP does it in a lot of tournaments is like, it's free entry, but you just basically sign up ahead of time, and like whoever does it, Batmouse, I think Batmouse does it, like he goes in there and just adds the people to the league. It launches, so it doesn't cost them anything, but if the league starts, once it starts, it's locked. Which might not necessarily discourage a new player, because they come in, they say, oh, look, we got these casual games I'm playing, we got leagues, oh, that one's already started, I wasn't able to enter it, I'll enter the next one. And if it doesn't cost them anything and you enter the league ahead of time, then you get what you get, and you're not able to make a new account just to go in there and try to open new boosters.
I actually like that solution much better than some of these other ones.
I do
I've,
too. I think that's the way to go if we do want to. We could even just sort of run these first few tournaments and see if it's looking
Mhm.
like it's a problem based off checking the IPs. And then
Sure.
if it looks like that's a big issue, then we can work on finding a solution. But yeah, we've got so many other things on the table right now. Let's not focus on that, I guess, until we
Right.
know it's the
Yeah.
actual issue.
Especially
Yeah, it's
since the
not
email
too
thing
too
is
big of
gonna
an
like
issue.
the email thing is gonna shut down um,
Yeah,
a lot of what can be done.
absolutely.
And so, like, yeah, I definitely don't want to put too much effort into figuring something out when that is gonna just completely solve it. So, yeah,
Yep. Cross that bridge if we have to.
yeah,
Yeah, the one thing I will say is that there was definitely a cheater in the War of the Ring sealed and in the Hunter's sealed, and especially in Hunter's sealed, it got absolutely obnoxious because every single time you're playing against a guy with like multiple masterworks and all the best minions, and it totally defeated the purpose of the league. But you had to play the guy because there were so few people in those leagues, with it being expanded blocks. Um, it completely ruined the enjoyment of those leagues for me for just
Uh,
the last 2 rounds of them.
yeah, thanks for bringing that up because I didn't get to play enough in those. I dabbled in it, but didn't get to play enough in it. Um, so yeah, thanks for letting me know on that. It does ruin it for people when they know they're just playing against kind of a bot account. So I think just being more vigilant on targeting those. I did browse some usernames for our current towers one and came across some that were uh, IPs that had registered multiple accounts. However, they were not multiple entries into the league, which is the issue. So for towers, I didn't see any, but I mean, maybe these lower level ones people are really abusing. I don't know.
and multiple
Yeah,
accounts is becoming more common when because people are coming in and asking how can I practice a deck without going into somebody, and like the only answer we have
Right, right.
is make a second account and play against yourself. So
Yep,
it's
and that's fine.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
but
only multiple, like per the code of conduct, it's only entering leagues multiple times with like the same person creating separate accounts to enter a league more than once.
right.
And yeah, maybe just for what you were talking about, Nelson, with the one that is like really random based, it's not so much like your starter deck and you get 4 boosters and here you go. It's really, really going to be interesting because the entirety of your deck is going to be built on kind of the algorithm, whatever you get. And I think we'll see some creative stuff out of that. But that is also going to encourage people to just kind of get torqued and create a new account. So, I can, volunteer to just go through all of those names and just try to check across a bunch to see if there's multiple entries. Albeit people can use VPNs if they want. They could have a paid VPN service, but I mean, if you're going to that extent to try to get a decent deck on GEMP, then
Right.
maybe you need more help than I can give you. So
yeah, I wouldn't even necessarily do the effort for everybody. I would just look at like the top 10 and make sure that I mean, if people are cheating and then coming in last in the league, who cares?
right,
But
good point.
but
Yeah, that's true. That it saves us time too. Like I'll just go in and browse who's really killing it and make sure that if it's someone new, the people that are the tried and true, we know the big names out there that love you One Fathom, Daisukman, and Schuler, like all these guys who are excellent at building decks out of random cards. Um, like we know they're fine, but if you see some random name pop up near the top 10, I'll check it out.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good.
all right. Well, anything else that we want to talk about before we wrap this up?
Nope. Yeah, you captured my action to do that race to Mount Doom stuff. That's just all I wanted to put forward. I don't have anything else.
Yeah, nothing more for me.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you guys for showing up. I really do like having these meetings. I'll try and have another one in November, although that will start to get a little hairy with the holiday season coming in. But yeah, I guess I'll stop the recording here.